Open mic time now. Mac Engel from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. You hear him on 105.3 The Fan as well. Joins us here from Capitol Hill. This sounds seems very official, doesn't it?
It really does. A lot more official than for me. So I feel a little bit out of place. But when I run for Senate, we'll look back on this with great fondness.
Depending on how this segment goes. Let's start out with the fact that somehow the Dallas Cowboys, if they win on Monday night, will be one game out of first place with a quarter of the season remaining. I know the answer to this, but what does it say about the NFC East?
That it's absolutely god-awful terrible. And I keep wanting to bury the team. You keep wanting to bury the Dallas Cowboys. All of us, even the great people here at Capitol Hill, continually want to bury the Cowboys, but the NFC East will not allow that to happen. I keep picking the Cowboys thinking the law of averages will eventually work in their favor, right? Well, eventually they're going to win one of these games. So this week, the sort of the Jedi mind trick, I picked the Redskins to win, which means the Cowboys are going to win to continue to further muddle this god-awful NFC East race.
I picked Washington to win as well, just because until I see them win a game, the Cowboys win a game without Romo, I won't believe it. And plus, this Washington team's been really good at home. They haven't won on the road, I don't believe, but they've been really good at FedEx Field. And Kirk Cousins has been surprisingly good as a quarterback at home for this team as well.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought when the season began, or even this time a year ago, that RG3 would be firmly planted as the number 3 quarterback here in Washington? And Kirk Cousins, proud of Michigan State University.
Please don't bring up Michigan State.
Sorry, I didn't know it was intentional. That they would have the Redskins, pointed in the right direction. This has been one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL, next to the Oakland Raiders. But now Kirk Cousins, it looks like Jay Gruden has found his right guy, and they're actually doing well at home, which means the Cowboys will officially be eliminated tomorrow night.
Romo, of course, out for the regular season. We'll talk more about the possibilities of him returning for the playoffs because they didn't put him on IR. But let's talk just briefly about Castle. It's not like he was god-awful the first time around in his 0-4 stint with the Cowboys. I think 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I would think he has to be better now after having been around the team. You look skeptical?
No, I don't think it's not skeptical. It's when he was bad, he was horrible. When he was bad, it was pick 6. And it's one thing to throw an interception or to fumble or to go 3 and out or whatever else, but he was giving the other team points in devastating fashion and ultimately scores that proved to be the difference in the game. You figure if he doesn't do that, maybe he doesn't do that tomorrow night against the Redskins, maybe Dallas wins. If he doesn't do that a couple of times, maybe the loss against Philadelphia, certainly the loss against the Giants. If he doesn't throw those killer pick 6s, we're looking at a totally different season. But as it stands, he did. This is where they are. He hasn't been terrible. But every other backup quarterback that has had any kind of substantial time for a team this season has won a game but him. It's his turn. It's his time, unless it's just written in the cards that this team is just doomed to be a 3-win team.
Let's stay with the quarterback theme. You were on the radio on The Fan the other morning with Jerry Jones. He appears quite often on the station. And you asked him how long Tony Romo had to play, how many good years he had. Yeah. And Jerry said 4 to 5 years. And you were stunned by that answer, as is only natural that you would be.
Yeah, I think stunned is the right way to put it. Even though, Mike, in fairness to Jerry, that's what he should say. It's what he should say. But if you look at it, and it looked at Romo's contract, 2 more years is really what they have to do. Because otherwise they can't do anything else with that position because Romo is on the hook for so much money. Now, Jerry did say, listen, you asked me what I thought. This is what I think. I don't really know, but it's what I think. And it's no different if I ask you, Mike, hey, Mike, what time's the sun going to come up tomorrow? You say 7:15. We're like, well, wait a minute, man. All the evidence says 6:45. Listen, you idiot. You asked me what time you thought the sun was. I think the sun's going to come up. And that's what time Jerry Jones thinks the sun's going to come up with Tony Romo. 4 to 5 more years. It's ridiculous. It's inane, but that's what he's got to say.
And that's because that's just who Jerry is. What I thought was fascinating, this is why I got so much play, even nationally, is because Jerry never bristles. He is always, say what you want about him, but he's always pretty well controlled in terms of his temperament with the media. I think it shows just how frustrating this thing has been and just how even he can't believe the kind of bad luck he's had this season.
No, and he said it a couple times, Mike. He said he's numb, and I think you're right. I think eventually everybody has a breaking point. And, Mike, of all the people that you've dealt with or I've dealt with, nobody has had a longer fuse more than this guy. But if you look at what was going right for this team going into the season and how it's gone, not just a left turn or a right turn, but just straight due south, even he has a breaking point. And I think that interview, those questions, any of that stuff is just sort of a culmination. Say, listen, enough. And he was mad, and I don't blame him.
Quickly, you wrote earlier this week about how you feel the Cowboys should give Johnny Manziel a look should that opportunity avail itself. I don't agree, just because I think they owe Romo more than having the sideshow of Johnny Manziel on display behind him. But make the argument for bringing Johnny Football in here, again, if the opportunity arises.
Well, I think one of the arguments is that the owner really wants him. And that interview that you referenced, Jerry Jones brought up the name himself. I didn't, because I didn't want to mention anything that had to do with tampering. But Jerry brought him up himself. And 2 years ago, you remember that footage of the War Room. There's Jerry lobbying from Johnny Manziel, who had fallen down to number 16. And he's sitting there. This was a player, Mike, that the Cowboys Brain Trust had rated as a top 6 player. Not top 6 quarterback, top 6 player. And if your Brain Trust thinks that guy is that good, bring him in. Because if they bring in a young guy, then whenever Romo gets hurt the next time or has a couple of games where he throws bad interceptions, they're going to be looking over his shoulder at the young guy, because we always love the young, pretty hot thing that's going to be the next thing. We did it with Drew Bledsoe and Romo, and it's going to be his turn. So whether it's Johnny Manziel or somebody else, it's inevitable. And if you think this guy's this good at one point, take a look, especially if you can get him for virtually nothing.
Yeah, as a media guy, I'd love it, because it would just be crazy. It would be, even by Cowboys standards, a tremendously entertaining circus. Quickly, the book. You've got a new one coming out. What's it all about?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. It's called Building the Perfect Star. It's about a man named Dr. Bob Ward, who was the Dallas Cowboys strength and conditioning coach from 1976 to 90. He truly was a pioneer and a visionary in his field of strength and conditioning. He was there at a time when all of that stuff was beginning to take off, and the professionalization of sports was beginning really in earnest. He was there when computers were starting to develop and becoming more and more integrated in sports. He was ahead of the curve on analytics. He was one of those guys who believed in CrossFit before CrossFit even had a name. And he was one of those guys who was so far ahead of the curve that only now, in 2015, can we look at what some of the things that he did and say, holy cow, this guy revolutionized an entire industry. It's called Building the Perfect Star. It's about Dr. Bob Ward. It's available now, including my own personal website, macengel.com. Please buy it there.
All right, Mac. Just in time for the holidays.
Just in time for the holidays. Santa Claus.
Mac Engel, Star Telegram and 105.3 The Fan, here in Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill. Kind of cool.
I'm going to be voting for this guy. I'm going to be voting for this guy. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.